Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are doing part 1 of 5 in my new watercolor spring series. In these videos, I'm going to be taking you step by step how to use watercolor to paint some of my favorite spring items. So in today's video, we are just starting off with a simple flower field to get us warmed up for this series. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And if you are new to my channel, my name is Emily Winslow, and I love to help others learn watercolor and find joy in painting. So let's go ahead and grab our paintbrushes and get started. So let's quickly go over our art materials that we'll be using in today's painting. So I have got my Winsor & Newton watercolor kit. This is the professional grade brand, and you can find it on my Amazon storefront, linked in my description. I've got 3 brushes with me today. I don't know if I'll use them all, but I have a size 12, a size 8, and a size 1. And then the paper brand that I love to use is called Strathmore. You can again find that on my Amazon storefront, linked in my description. So let's go ahead and just do a quick little sketch. Like I said, we're going to do a very simple flower field, so not too much sketching involved here, but I just do like to kind of lay out where the bottom of my grass will end and maybe where the horizon line will be. So I'm just going to put about the middle where the horizon will be. And I think it'd be really pretty to make it look like there's like a middle ground and a foreground. So we are going to just put another line here under that horizon line where we're going to add maybe some bushes here in the middle. So go ahead and just add a little bit, maybe a little bit of a tree here. And make sure the back also has some bushes, but I'm actually going to make little shapes as if it were little houses in the background. So you can add like a little square, and you don't need to follow exactly what I'm doing, but you can if you want to. You can put little houses wherever you want. I just think it kind of adds a little character to have layers within the painting. So it doesn't need to be too complicated, but we'll just add a little bit of a tree line right here. Maybe another little house right here. Super simple. Yeah, I feel like these small details kind of just add a little bit of that interest to the painting. Maybe one more little bush here. Now I'm going to make a diagonal line, kind of like there might be a little bit of a path through some of the flowers here. And we don't need to be too precise with this. I'm just going to lightly use my pencil during this whole sketch process. The reason why I did the diagonal line is it kind of just helps with the perspective of the painting, kind of showing a little bit more of the atmosphere. And then this is where the top of the sky will be. I like to leave a little white space around my painting, so that's kind of why I'm marking out where I want the top of the sky to end. And that really is all I'm going to sketch out. So super simple. If you need to pause the video before we paint, you can do so, but let's go ahead and grab our brushes. So when I do watercolors, I like to start with the sky. So let's go ahead and grab our water. And I'm going to mix up a very light blue. So we're going to grab some blue. And I like to use white in my watercolor paintings. I was watching another tutorial and I kind of realized that it's a little bit of a no-no to use white in watercolor, because it maybe like muddies or tones down the color a little bit, but I think that's what I'm drawn to. I love toned down earthy pigments in watercolor. So you can do whatever you want to do. You don't have to follow the rules. Now we're just going to lay this watercolor lightly on here. And I'm just going to get a little lighter as I go towards the horizon line here. And I'm just going to add a bit more of that blue pigment in, maybe around the middle here, as if there are clouds. I like when the top or like the sides are darker in pigment than the inside. Kind of just gives it that dimension. So go ahead and just place the paint wherever you want. Maybe leave some spaces open for clouds. Now I'm going to just mix up a little bit of a pinkish purple tone. Just add that underneath some of the clouds. Just a very light color, just tapping that in, and adds a little bit of that layer and shadow to the clouds. Now I'm working on a 5x5 piece of paper, so you can do this in a larger scale if you'd like. I don't know if I'd do this any smaller because it's a little bit tight to work on small paintings. And then I'm just going to take a little bit more of a pinkish tone, tap that in very lightly, just a little bit more under our clouds. I just love adding pink into skies. I think it just creates my favorite kind of sky. I love cotton candy skies. You can make whatever kind of sky you want. If you want more of a blue sky, you don't have to do this part. Whatever kind of sky you like. Okay, now while we kind of let the sky dry a little bit, I'm going to move on to the flowers before we tackle our tree line and our middle ground here. So let's go ahead and choose our flower color. Now you don't have to do what I'm doing, but I think I want to do a yellow flower field. I thought about doing a pink one, but I thought the sky was a little too pink to do another set of pink in the painting. So always be thinking about that. Maybe balance out the colors in your painting. Maybe choose something that's a little different from the sky. You can make a blue flower field, you can make a lavender one, whichever one you'd like. I just think yellow would look nice in this painting. So I just mixed up a very nice muted type of yellow. And you can achieve that by mixing yellow, maybe a bit of orange or brown. Definitely adding a little bit of white in here. I'm just gonna grab more and just add in more of the pigment in here. Let's go ahead and add it on this side as well. Now I'm leaving a little bit of the gap where we marked out our path because I'm just gonna add some of the grass in there once we get to that. So I'm just gonna grab a deeper, more of a maybe mustard or brownish yellow color. So I'm just grabbing this brown and tapping that in more towards the bottom of the flowers. We don't need to swipe this color over the whole thing. Maybe more just kind of concentrated at the bottom, and then maybe tap it a little bit upwards to mix it in with the flowers. And we're going to do a little bit more on this side. I'm actually going to add more water to this side because it kind of dried up a little bit. So if your flowers are drying up, you can just add more paint and water in there. And just again, adding the darker brown to the bottom. I'm so ready for spring and summer. It's my favorite time of the year. I love being outside. And living in Indiana, I feel like winter is not the best time to be outside. So kind of done with winter. But there is beauty during the winter too, so I don't want to discount that. So I'm just going to kind of let it bleed down a little bit because I'm about to add some grass and I do want it to mix together a little bit. And actually, sorry, I'm going to add one more piece of yellow here. I want to make it look like there's like yellow flowers sticking out. So it'll make more sense once I add the green. But I just wanted it to look like there's some yellow flowers kind of hanging out outside. Otherwise, this kind of looks like a flat field of wheat if we don't add a little bit of our texture. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a smaller brush here. So my size 8 or 6 or 8. I think it's a size 8. Kind of getting mixed up. And then I'm going to mix up some green. Now, if you haven't seen my video where I talk about mixing colors, I might go visit that because that's where I talk a little bit about how I achieve more of like a toned down earthy palette with this watercolor kit. I've gotten that question a few times, so I would go check that out if you want to learn how to mix colors in the way I'm doing it here in this video. But we are all our own artists, so I always say find the style you love. If you love to have more vibrancy or higher pigments in your paintings, definitely do that. Avoid using white. Like me, I love white. But I just love soft, light and airy paintings. I think they're so peaceful. So that's kind of the style I go for. Then we're just kind of adding the green in between here. I'm gonna add it all at the bottom of this flower, of these flowers over here. All paintings go through what I call the ugly stage, so don't panic. While it looks like this, it'll get better, don't worry. Or I hope so. Sometimes I do panic and I'm like, oh my goodness, is this gonna turn out okay? And you know what? Sometimes they don't turn out okay and I throw them away. And that's just part of practicing. But what happens with watercolor is it starts to look weird when you put in paint without the layers. So now we are just going in with a darker green to add in some of the shadows, and this is going to help. So we want our darker green to be around the bottom edges here. And I want to flick my brush up. Actually, I'm going to grab my lighter green. We want to flick it up to bleed into our flowers here, kind of like they're the stems. So I'm just adding that in. As you can tell, it's starting to help define our path a little bit. Now we need to do the same thing over here, just flicking our brush upwards, helping to show that these are the stems and not just a blob of yellow. Now I'm just going to continue layering on, because when the paint bleeds together, it kind of mixes in too much. I love the look of loose painting, so I do like when the paint bleeds, but sometimes you need to go back and put more layers over. It's starting to come together. No need to panic. I'm talking to myself. I was panicking. Now, something that's about to help a little bit more is, let's take a lighter green, and we're actually going to put a little bit of green throughout our flowers here. Now, that's just going to help, separate the flowers a little bit, help this look a little bit more realistic. Now, there's no exact way I'm going about this. I'm kind of just dotting in the green wherever I see fit. But towards the back here, we want to start doing maybe more like straight or lines across rather than dotting bigger dots in the front, if that makes sense. We want to make sure it kind of follows the perspective a little bit. So I'm just kind of like making the lines a little bit more straight here in the back. And gonna kind of take some water and loosen this line up a little bit. Don't want it to be too stark, so I want it to blend in a little bit. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of green over here. This is where you can kind of start to see the flowers taking shape. And honestly, they're more like dots rather than flowers, but I like to say my style is a little bit more impressionistic, so kind of suggests that these are flowers. We don't like go in and actually make the petals of each one. And I love impressionism because it's just kind of loose and easy for the eye to look at when there's not so much detail for your eyes to kind of go around and look at. I just love loose paintings. Now I'm going to tackle some of the houses before we start our foreground. So let's go ahead and put a little color in here. I'm going to add some like maroon or red roofs. So I'm just mixing up some red with brown and a little bit of black maybe, just to get a nice toned down red. And I'm going to add that to the roof right here and just make it a small little rectangle, or like a trapezoid. I'm going to mix up more of a light color. Actually, let's go ahead and do the roof of the other one, which I think I'm going to just do like a darker gray over here, a little bit of gray right there, and just maybe a thin one for this one, kind of just doing different shapes. And then for the house itself, I think I just want it to be like a nice creamish color, so we're just gonna have white with maybe a little bit of yellow in there. Just start to add that in. Now, I'm impatient, so I'm just going ahead to paint this on here. So I'm just leaving a little bit of a line between the roof and the house so I don't bleed them together. But you're welcome to wait and let that roof dry. I like to paint as fast as I can sometimes. Now I'm just gonna add a little, oh, it's a lot of blue. You can get the color off by dipping your paint in your water. Just wanted to mix up like a little bit of a purple color here. And I just wanted to add that in around the edge of the house. Give it a little shadow. Okay, so now that we have the houses, let's go ahead and start working on our field back here. So I'm taking a light green, maybe a little bit of yellow in there to make it a little warmer. And I'm working on this middle ground here. So I'm just gonna lightly lay this green in, and I'm avoiding, so we wanted to put some bushes here in the middle ground. So I'm just avoiding a little bit where we laid out the bush and just adding that green in. Just like this. Actually, I'm just gonna go across the whole bottom too. So we're just gonna layer over with the bushes anyway. So the reason why I wanted this to be a little bit lighter than the grass that we have here in the front is for it to be a pretty noticeable difference in our ground. So like the foreground, I wanted it to be more of a more bright green, and I wanted this middle ground to just have a more muted tone so you can kind of tell that it's further back. And now we are going to tackle our bushes here in the middle ground. And then lastly, we'll do the tree line in the back. So for these bushes, let's go ahead and mix up a green that's maybe similar to the grass that we have in the front there. A little bit darker, maybe a little bit of an even reddish tone in there. Oops. Sometimes I add too much color at once and I need to go back and tone it down. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start dotting where this bush is gonna be, and just go like this. Doesn't have to be too perfect. I just wanted it to kind of give it some dimension to this painting. That's kind of why I like to add certain things a little bit closer in the painting, some things further back. That way the painting doesn't look too flat. I don't know what kind of tree this is called, but I feel like I see them around in neighborhoods. Kind of like one of those tall, like, I don't even know if it's a bush or a tree. I think it's more of a tree. I've been calling it bush this whole time. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna actually swipe away some of the paint here to leave a little bit of a highlight. And I'm gonna go ahead now and mix up my darker green. We're just adding a little bit of black in here and brown, a bit of green. Now let's go ahead and add this nice shadow, and I'm gonna help just define it a little bit more. And I wanted to add one kind of look like it was two over here, not just one, so I'm adding more shadow. I'm gonna add a little bit of this reddish tone over here. Just thought it could use a little bit more color. And lastly, we're gonna tackle the tree line, and I just want this to be a different color than all the other greens we used. So I'm mixing up kind of like a grayish, like we're gonna have some blue in here. Now when you have like blues and purples in things like tree lines that are further back, it helps them look further back, because if you kind of observe in real life, trees that are far away just got kind of that misty look of having blue and purple in it. That makes sense. So I'm just using this color to go around the houses that we marked out, and also avoid the bushes or the trees. Let me know if they're bushes or trees. I've been calling them the wrong thing. Now this is the thing with watercolor, is you gotta be careful a little bit around where you've painted. Now some people would probably say to wait. We live on the edge here though, and I just go for it. And I'm just adding this. I want the tree line in the back not to be a completely straight line, but I do want it to be less bumpy than these bushes that we did in the middle ground. So kind of just adding this around, making sure not to touch too many things. I kind of made a mistake of putting some of the green under this house. It kind of looks like it's floating there. So what I'm going to do is just take a darker green, make it look like a bush was in front of that. you can just fix things by adding things over it. So just taking a darker green, just gonna darken the lower part here, and then just add this green under here. And do that actually over here too. Now hopefully that house looks like it may be behind like a little shrub there. Do that over here as well. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little small brush and start just doing a little bit of cleanup in places that I think need it. So I do want to take a nice dark green, and I am going to just wipe that across here at the bottom of the whole tree line. And then I also want to take this and start adding that to the bottom of our trees or bushes here, kind of giving it more of that definition. And I'm actually going to add that to the other side a little bit to outline it a little bit better, make it look like there's leaves coming off the tree. I'm super excited for next week's video. We are going to be doing mallards in the sky. And to me, mallards are just a representation of spring. So be sure to check out that video when it comes out. And always let me know in the comments what you want to learn how to paint. Always love making new tutorials and to give more ideas. So yeah, like I said, right now we are in our spring series, so we're just going to do a bunch of paintings that remind us of spring. Now I'm just taking my really thin brush here and doing a little bit more stems here just to define it a bit more, but we don't want to put too many. I don't like when paintings just look too symmetrical or too defined maybe. Like in the past when I did flowers, I kind of just make the flowers look so even, like dots, like you can just, it doesn't look real. So I just really have learned that being loose and messy with paintings kind of just adds so much more to it. Again, just kind of dotting in our path here. Maybe just adding a little bit. And here you have it, a nice little flower field for our first spring video. I hope you join me for my next one. I hope you all walk away with a beautiful flower field watercolor painting and learned some new techniques in today's video. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love if you give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And you can always find me on social media at Emily Winslow Art. I'd love to hear from you and see what you've been doing, so feel free to share your work with me on there. And as always, if there is something you want to learn how to paint, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to chat with you there. So join me next time for part 2 of this spring series, where I'm going to be teaching you how to paint some mallards in the sky. I'm super excited for that one. So until we paint again next time.